All right. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, March 24th, 2025 meeting of the Town of Rockland Board of Sewer Commissioners. The time is now exactly 6 o'clock on the 24th of March. I having all the board members present, I will call the meeting to order with everyone here. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from February 27th, 2025, and I know Robin emailed those out to everybody.
Correct.
Did everyone have the opportunity to look at them?
I did.
Hearing that,
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
there's a motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vote. The third item on the agenda, we have Frank Archie. Yeah, oh my god, I should have asked you at the outset, but Frank from Weston and Sampson, welcome Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I think you know, we're like a new board. We really have worked in the last few months really to dive in. I really try to level set where everything is, where all the projects are. So we as a board have the opportunity to just help really continue and advance a lot of the momentum with everything we have, and in bringing even additional credibility to what we're trying to do and move forward. So,
Great.
Take it away.
Well, thank you, board members. Nice to meet you all. Again, my name is Frank Archipenti from Weston and Sampson, and tonight I'm just going to provide an overview summary of the work that we've been assisting the town with in regards to the I&I and O&M program. So I have a little presentation on the screen. This is the outline that I'll be talking about this evening, which is the I&I and O&M annual program, along with the NIPD's O&M plan update. And as part of the I&I O&M program, we also did a townwide smoke testing project last year, and then also discussed the rate study. So with that, so in 2021 there was an existing SSES report performed, and we were asked by the town in order to take those recommendations and prepare a contract in order to bid the work in order to remove the II. So roughly there was about 28,000 gallons of II that was identified, and of that about 113, let's see if I can point to these things. So this was the identified II, about 228,000 gallons, and this was the removable II. So we estimated about 50% of that, which is about 114,000 gallons. That work was completed. That work was completed between 2022 and 2024. The II control plan consists of a 15-year plan in order to take in consideration the cost associated with implementing a plan on the town. So it started with year one with just starting with new flow data, where we put in flow meters throughout the city, town rather, and also rainfall monitoring in order to identify flows and any NII. And then years 2 through 4, we focused on infiltration. Year 5 was to focus on inflow, and then year 6 would be project rehabilitation, design and construction. And the reason why we wait through years 2 and 5 before we typically do a rehab project is so that you can build up enough of enough of rehab work in order to justify a rehab project. If the project's too small, you may not get competitive bids, for example. It's more cost effective.
You keep going.
And then it cycles repeatedly through those for the next two or three cycles. So this is a this is a summary table of what that II control plan looks like in the form of tabular form. So again, you can see that it starts year one, we start doing a metering program. Year two, we do infiltration investigation with manholes and TV. 2 and 3. Year 4 was going to be manhole inspection and television work. However, we slipped in smoke testing work in between because of our large development that was being considered to connect it to the town. So the idea was to see if we could identify some large inflow, move forward with that work, and see if we could gain some capacity for the town, which I'll get into on that project. And then, so the gray highlights the inflow work, the white highlights the infiltration work, and then the green highlights the design and rehabilitation work for the construction. And then you can see it, we have 3 phases of this work continuing into fiscal year 2038. So year 1, again, as I mentioned, was the flow metering work. The stars represent where the flow meters were located throughout the town. There's a few pump stations which were also identified. And again, we've had groundwater gauges in there as well, and this as well as a rain gauge. And this was over a 10-week period in 2023. This is a tabulated result of that data. So we're looking at total length of pipe that was looked at. Average flow was about, for that period, was about 2.28 mgd. Of which the calculated average daily sanitary flow was about 1.36. Base infiltration was just almost 1 mgd. When you take in a peaking factor, peak infiltration was about 1.2 mgd. 1.2 mgd. And then the design storm II in total was about 2.8 mgd. And then the other one is the inflow, and then there's a total volume of flow with rain-derived II. So in a nutshell, you're looking at the 2.8. Now, this was during a 10-week period in 2023. That's not necessarily what the town or what the treatment plant has seen historically over the years. We've seen that flow go much higher than these. And again, this is based on a design storm. It's a 1.87 inch per hour design storm. Again, you've seen a lot higher over the probably the last 5 years. And again, the flows have been much higher than that. So based on that year 1 metering work, year 2 was to start looking at first prioritizing all of the areas and then tackling which sub areas to do first. So based on the net peak infiltration and inflow identified, we prioritize each sub area and rank them from 1 to 15 roughly. And then we start tackling those areas and based on the plan, we're doing like approximately 2 areas each year. So for year 2, areas 6 and 11 were looked at, and of the 37,000 linear feet of sewer and 172 manholes inspected, there was 45,000 gallons per day of observed infiltration, and then 110,000 gallons per day of unidentified service flow. And what that means is there's flow coming from the service. We can't visually see where it's coming from, like if there was like a joint and we could see flow coming from the joint or a crack. It's just flow from the service. We know it's clear, so it's suspect that hasn't been confirmed yet. So again, this is that project area for year 2, and based on the analysis and the investigation work, the yellow lines in this plan represent lines where we saw the yellow lines represent sewer segments where we saw infiltration, and the red manholes represent the manholes where we observed infiltration as well. So this map provides a good overview for this particular area of where that flow is coming from specifically. And then these are just some examples of that flow. So again, you can see an old vitrified clay sewer, and you can see infiltration coming from the joint at that sewer. That's about 7,200 gallons per minute estimated. Here's another example coming out the side of the sewer, about 7,200 gallons a minute. Here is
per day, not per minute, right?
I'm sorry, gallons per day, yes, thank you.
No problem.
This is a service connection. We can see that at the joint, either here or here, that there is infiltration coming from a joint. Here's another example of infiltration at a joint. Manholes with signs of infiltration, usually it's staining. Well, you can see the staining coming down from the manhole as well as in the manhole table. And then here is infiltration and inflow coming from a manhole cover, so in this case it might have been raining that day. So again, here's an example of a verified service connection with infiltration. If we saw this clear water coming out of that service connection, and usually the camera likes to stay, we like to stay there for a little bit to make sure it's not someone using the sink or something where it's going to be a quick hit. So we try to stay there for a little bit of time. We also can tell by, if there's a lot of dark staining around there that it's being used continuously. But again, we couldn't see where it was coming from. So in that case, it's an unidentified service connection. Year 3 was originally intended to go sub-areas 9 and 10. The town wanted to skip 10 and go to 13 for certain reasons. I think there were either some development happening over there or a suspect source. I can't recall what it was, but the intent was to do these 2 areas next. About 36,000 linear feet, 216 manholes inspected. Observed infiltration was almost 69,000 gallons per day, and the unidentified service flow suspected of II was about 9,000. This is the project area, and again you can see the sewers that are suspected, inspected with observed II, which is infiltration, which is identified in yellow. So a good portion, most of the sewer pipe had some type of II identified. And again, these are some examples. Infiltration at a service connection, almost 29,000 gallons per day. Another one, about 7,200 gallons per day. So this is a little bit modified from the original II control plan submitted to DEP. Again, the smoke testing was done ahead of time, and basically the town is ahead of schedule on their II control plan. Year 4 infiltration project originally was planned for the spring of 2026. Currently, there's plans maybe to move forward, speed up the actual rehab work, try to eliminate some additional II, and move that up to fiscal year 25, 26. So that is the current plan with the proposal in hand. Which again would go right there. So in summary, this kind of summarizes the work completed to date and the observed and suspected along with removable II. So in total, the SSES in 2021 observed 228,000 roughly gallons of infiltration. Almost 14,000 gallons was removed. The year 2 and 3, which is proposed for future rehab, ends up being about almost 114,000 gallons of observed infiltration, 119,000 gallons of suspected infiltration. This ends up being half, but I think it'll end up being about 60,000 gallons when you look at the different types of rehab that actually gets done. So down below here is kind of down below is kind of a summary of identified infiltration, identified inflow. The 1.5 was that 80% of inflow identified as part of the metering that was smoke tested. And then the one in green is the current removed and anticipated removed infiltration for years 1 through 3. So about almost 171,000 gallons per day of infiltration will be removed following the next project for years 2 and 3.
Any questions from anyone?
Yeah,
on that?
we go back a couple slides, we talk about, the section we went over, is that a higher section, how much gallons per day? Like, why did they skip that section?
Which one?
Go back and forward, right there.
Oh, right there?
Yeah.
So it did have higher,
I'm just curious why we skipped over, it's 4th ranked in priority list, and we skipped it.
again, I'd have to look back at my notes, but I think it could have been as part of the development that was coming in. This might have been focusing on those sewers that are coming from that area with the intended tie-in. So it would have immediate impact on, the II mitigation for a connection coming into your system.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, good.
Yeah, like in what development specifically? When you mentioned anticipated development, that was
The large development was the South Weymouth naval
okay.
veteran space.
Okay. And I'll walk through any questions on any of this so far.
No, I don't have any questions.
See, and the only other question I have is in terms of the rehab work, like you mentioned the rehab work included the rehab work included the first phase. The first part of it was done. How are we intending to fund the second part of the first phase rehab work?
That's out of I-9 involved. We have the monies put aside for it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, right now we do.
We do.
Okay.
You mean moving forward?
Yes.
Right, so we should have, it's gonna be dependent, Frank's working on the contract right now to put that, work scope out.
Okay.
And we're gonna go after that second phase
Mm-hmm.
that he mentioned, and once we get that done and we get the rehab done, we'll probably be working on that other phase that he was referring to as well. So we do have the monies put aside for that. from
Okay.
previous developers and the account.
And when we initially developed the II control plan for the town, we provided an estimated cost per year of what it would take in order to do this project,
Uh-huh.
which included the years for rehabilitation years.
Okay.
And I believe that at the time, the town, or the sewer commission, excuse me, ended up budgeting for that in their annual budget. So there
Yeah,
is
in
a
the
line.
prior years, but like I'm thinking about like the future years, like when we basically like bring down, the I&I like revolving fund, to do the rehab work we have planned, and we're kind of twixt in between, because right now we have like a moratorium, where we don't have the ability to replenish, the revolving to do additional I&I work in the future. Right now, I mean, I'm not arguing with anything that you mentioned. We planned on doing what we have in the queue now, but just I want to make sure we're talking about it. I want to make sure, residents at home get it. That what we're talking about in terms of our future I&I to actually like continually make these improvements. Like we have, we potentially have like an unsustainable funding path until we have additional developments that are helping us replenish the I&I revolving fund.
Correct.
There's a certain percentage, like Frank was referring to, that as part of those rate increases, it will cover some of the I&I. But again, it'll be enough to keep going, but it's not enough to get ahead, where we are going to need that development to keep that going, or the rates will end up going up, and then it'll be on the burden of the resident.
Yeah, I mean, just like with our tax rates, if we don't have the commercial development to split out the burden, it'll be all on the residential rate pay. The same thing will happen here.
Correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to. Sorry, Frank.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Alright, okay, so I'll move that down to. So that's the summary of, again, how much II has been removed to date, with the intended future rehab work. Next is a NIFTY's O&M plan. So this is something that we are currently working on. It's just in its quality control stage. We should have that for you next 2 to 4 weeks. And basically, it's a plan that outlines the system description, operating procedures, maintenance schedules, training, housekeeping, and contingency plans in the event of emergency. So this is all something that's required by DEP and EPA, so that's something we're working to pull together, and again, you'll have that shortly. Also provides a summary of activities during the previous calendar year for this project.
And just a quick question on that. How long has this project been ongoing for? Is this new, or has this been underway for a while?
No, this has been underway for, like I said, we're just wrapping it up.
Yep,
now,
okay.
So,
Thank
next was the townwide smoke testing. So again, a large portion of the II that's coming into the collection system is coming in either through infiltration or inflow. Infiltration is that groundwater that enters the system through cracks and leaks. Inflow is rainwater that enters the system. It could be through public sources like a direct connection like a catch basin or drain. It could be also private connections such as sump pumps, as well as roof leaders and perimeter drains. So again, the work started in September of last year and concluded in October of last year roughly. There were 8 sub-areas in a portion of sub-area 9 that included, which was about 80% of the inflow identified as part of the metering program. So we looked at 80% of that flow that's coming into the town system, and it's roughly half, a little more than half of the system. So, surprisingly, we didn't find too many sources. We found several suspect sources like downspouts entering the ground. We found one open cleanout, and we found one sump pump during the home inspections. So what that tells us is we didn't identify any public sources. 294 buildings, or about 10 to 15% of the buildings, did not smoke during the smoke testing work. So what that tells us is that every building connected to the sewer has a sewer vent on their roof, and that vent is designed to suck in air as flow goes through the system in the house, and also vent gas necessarily out of that stack. If it's not smoking, that tells us a couple of things. Unlikely it could be a clog in their vent somehow, especially if like a squirrel or something gets down there. More likely it could be a house-wide trap, which is preventing the smoke from entering at the property line or right at the basement.
Where's the smoke coming from?
So we introduce smoke into the sewer system, and then we observe for any leaks that it could become exiting the sewer.
It's just commercial or?
This was up in, again, the areas, a lot of it was in the downtown area, which is where we identified the majority of the 80% of the inflow in the town.
You mean like a house trap, is that, why would somebody have a house trap prior to going to the sewer system?
Some of the older houses, they were designed like that
Right.
originally. So instead of having separate traps, they had it right before it exited the house.
Okay,
So it's not uncommon for some of those.
it's an old school way of doing things.
Old school, yeah. We've
Right.
seen them in a lot of other older communities. So what makes it tough is that the smoke testing is hard to identify. You know, it doesn't give you a full picture of where all the smoke is coming from. This is an example of one of those sources that we did find. You can look in the grass area. There's an open clean out that's smoking. So we label it, identify it, and you know, anything that comes off the building, off the roof, and into this area is potentially going into that trap, into that clean out, causing a source of inflow. So, any questions at that point? So what the minimal amount of sources in the smoke testing tells us that there could be a lot of private sump pumps that are connected to the sewer system. And these sump pumps, by code, need to be connected outside, not into the sewer system. A lot of people just don't understand that, so it's an educational piece on trying to make people aware that, you know, a lot of people interpret a sewer and the drain all as one. It's a drain, it drains, but they don't realize there's two separate systems. One goes to the treatment plant here, and one goes to the water bodies. So education is a key component, and then also future inspections in order to identify and remove these sump pumps. So the rate study, again, we were asked to do a rate study to get a handle on the costs and rate hikes that would be necessary in order to handle the cost of not only the treatment plant, but all the other costs, including an II program. So that was factored in when looking at the rate study. So what the rate study identified, and this has changed a couple of times, it's roughly between 10 and 12% for the first 8 years, and then for the next, one thing to keep in mind before I kind of continue with these numbers is normally you do a rate study and you're looking out for 5 years. Anything beyond that is kind of getting blurry because there was a large project going on, like the treatment plant upgrade. We had some costs associated with that, and the town wanted to put that into the rate study so they could anticipate how much they would need at the end of this in 2038, and where the rates would hit throughout that time period. So this is why we're looking so far out. Normally, this is we wouldn't be looking this far out. So based on that, again, you can see that the first 8 years is about 10 to 12%, and then the following 7 years slowly starts to decline now as we hit the end of that project from 8% down to 2%. And then when you look at that in comparison to inflation, I mean, if you're not at 3 to 4% at a minimum each year, then you're not even keeping up with inflation. So at a minimum, if nothing was going on, you'd still be raising these about 3 to 4%, just to keep up with inflation. So when you look at these hikes, you might want to take that in consideration when you look at the overall percentage of these. So in total, this is what those rate hikes look like over that period, and what the revenue and retained earnings will look like over that same time period. These rates are shown increasing over a period. Just keep in mind that some reason the percentages didn't carry over, so I'm not sure why, but I noticed just recently that they didn't carry over to this chart. But the rates are correct. And what you can see is that ideally trying to stay within this retained earnings line in the middle here is where you want to be in order to be a healthy budget and a healthy operating income for the sewer commission. What you're seeing in the orange is that operating expense, and then what you're seeing in the blue in this chart is the new debt associated with the treatment plant as it starts to get constructed over a number of years. And then what you're seeing in the green line right here, so this is the blue first, is that new debt that's going to occur again over that period of time as the treatment plant gets constructed. This green line represents the retained earnings. So if we try to maintain a lower percentage hike for the rate, future projections showed that you'd start dipping down, and when the construction really got heavy and the costs started getting higher, your retained earnings would dive.
It'd bottom out.
So trying to get some of this rate up to this point before that project kicks in allows it to kind of level out and eventually be reasonable on the second phase or ladder of the year during construction. So
Frank, just a quick question, with the new debt, how would that be structured? Like, I mean,
so the new debt, the intent was to fund most of the treatment facility through SRF loans, low interest loans, and that is usually over a 20 or 30-year payback. And then there is some principal forgiveness associated with that as well, but you're not seeing that until the very end of the loan. So that is not even being factored in this because we're not looking out 20, 30 years. It's on the tail end of that. But there is some of that at the end. which is why, again, you know, in the end, you won't have as much hype too, because of that principal forgiveness is gonna cut those loans off a little earlier. So that's how they typically do those.
Yeah, like like in the rate analysis and the projections that you're making based on this, like we in the town will have the ability to fund the project within our updated rate structure, including absorbing the debt as well.
Based on these projections at the time, it was going to cover the debt,
Okay.
the operating expense, all of that, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And we can show you, you know, you have the report, but we can certainly go over separately if you want, how we looked at that CIPP, capital improvement plan
Yep.
over that time span, so.
I do have one question. How do our rates per unit compare to other towns in the area?
I mean, currently, this is $8 is average. But some communities are higher, some are lower than the $8. So it's not like $8.15 is exorbitant amount compared to other communities.
No, it's not now, but by fiscal year 34, we're talking about 2208.
Yeah.
So we're talking about
And-
tripling it in 10 years.
I would just say that, again, looking that far out is something that we did in order to try to look at specifically the capital improvement plan related to the treatment plant upgrades, but this should be looked at, you know, every few years potentially to see how the budget is really comparing to the costs in the projection.
So a follow-up question on that, if we had more business interest in money coming in from I&I projects, such as a large project being built at Rockland, tie-in, would those offset some of those rate hikes eventually if that was to happen?
If the town had the flow to bring it in now, with the II removal fee in the mitigation, it should offset any flow that's coming in. So as development comes in, you're actually reducing overall flow based on your match of 11-1 removal. But again, it's still a slow process in order to get the amount of flow that you need to start bringing in development.
And keep in mind, Matt, too, because of, we are one of the towns with a wastewater treatment plant. I mean, if you're comparatively looking at those rates compared to Abington, you know, they don't have a plant, they're getting all theirs from a Brockton source. Do you know what I mean? So their rates are mostly based off of collections, you know, so a little different, you know what I mean?
No, I do understand, I mean,
Yeah.
the bottom line to the person paying the bill is not a difference though.
No, I know,
You know, and
Yeah.
that's what you know, I mean,
yeah,
it's nice to say we own one,
yeah.
you know what I mean, but at the same time,
Yeah, it's hard though too, because I mean, like a lot of towns that do own one, like they're facing a lot of the same challenges, like in development pressures that we have as well. And like when I mean, like even if we had like an apples to apples approach, you know, here like the average right now in FY25 may be 8%, but and yeah, like in my experience, I've also found if we try to remain at the other town average as well, you know what it's actually doing at this point, like it's further deferring all of our issues. Like we're punting. I mean, potentially if we followed that, like we would be further punting more than the 30 years we've already punted. Like I mean, like all the issues because we're trying to be quote unquote, competitive or like a market based, and yeah, like we're not actually like reflecting our true needs and our true costs at that point.
No,
I mean, just another. I mean, it's all. I mean, we can talk about this all day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
essentially
and again,
why
this
we're
is
going
based on
down
100,
here, so.
100
Yeah.
cubic feet, so if you're comparing that to like, say, milk, you know, when you're comparing this per gallon, that's like basically less than 1 cent a gallon. When you compare it to milk, it's about $4 a gallon. Compare it to Dunkin' Donuts, it's about $30 a gallon. So when you look at cost per gallon compared to other consumables, it's still extremely cheap considering what's involved in order to deal with all of the wastewater treatment.
I just had to ask.
Yeah, no, I think it's help. I mean, it's we have to be talking and asking like this. I think.
That's all I have.
Thank you, appreciate it. On that note, no, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you ever need me in the future to update you on any other items,
Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks for
for having
working with
me.
you. Thank you, Frank.
nice to meet you all.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks, Frank.
Pause that for a minute.
Sure.
I can break that down. What's up?
We're just gonna recess for 2 moments.
Matt, who's in that?
All right. So we heard from Weston Sampson. The next item on the agenda is an OPM discussion. Dave, do you wanna
Yeah, I can kind of summarize where
jump
we're
into
at
where we are?
right now. So that's made up of a committee that we talked about at the last meeting. It's Megan, myself, Courtney Beauregard, who is our assistant town administrator, and Allison Quinn, who is our town planner, and Michael Mullins. So we met. Do you want to go over where we're at with the? We got it down to 4 firms.
Yep.
And we rated those 4 firms.
Yes, we've heard from. Oh, sorry, Dave.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, like we did have 4 sets of proposals. We went through them, ranked them, and actually identified 2 of the 4 like of really the town being interested in, and what we want to do. We actually met like on Friday afternoon. So it was actually too quick to have like a turnaround in time for tonight. But we're hoping actually hoping to have like a special meeting, perhaps next week, to bring all the rankings and the information. Like in all the firms, but especially the top 2. To talk about those proposals, to talk about those proposals with the board, and then really based on the board's feedback and input, actually set up interviews at the end of April to have the 2 firms in, and so we as a board, together with everyone else in the group. Have the ability to flush through with the 2 firms, ask questions, and really what we want to do through this procurement process to really make sure that not only are they ranking well, but we really want to have we really want to have a firm that's like a good solid fit for the town as well. This is a big project. This project is critical. We want to make sure that we're jumping out in a place that our board is extremely comfortable with, and then also we do have other stakeholders in the team in town who we work with who are going to be a critical part of this as well, and really make sure everyone is able to provide information back to our board. In the remainder of the ranking and the interview process as well. Once all that happens and the interview happens, we'll have to rank other firms 1 and 2, and then then at that point we will like direct I believe the superintendent and the town administrator to like begin like negotiations with the top ranked firm. So again, we're probably like at this point we're probably like a month out from you know having a top ranked firm identified. But just again, like bringing back to the board in a week or so where we are, like in the process, who we heard from, and then that will give us the ability, like all of us an ability to do further reference checks, to prepare questions and other things for those interviews in late April. Anything else, Steve?
No, so the early April meeting, you'll get a look at all 4 proposals. You'll get a consensus evaluation document. You'll get a formal memo of the recommendation from the staff that was meeting. And then you'll get a draft list of questions for the additional input that we would be looking to ask whatever we get those 4 down to. You know, like, you know, how are you gonna do this? What's that? So.
How many applicants are?
What's that? We had 4 firms submit documentations, and then you'll have what we recommended. You'll get a memo from our committee on what we recommended, and then we'll have you guys look at the evaluation forms, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I can just really to clarify, the committee is more of like a working group.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, not really. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I thought we did very well, and we've already started putting together a list of where we think it'll be pertinent questions to ask these firms. We'll ask the firms probably to do a small presentation and then answer those questions at the same time. So,
Okay.
Works for me.
all right. Any additional questions or on that, or?
No,
No.
straightforward.
Excellent.
Moving on, administrative update, Mr.
So,
Superintendent.
I'm gonna do the administrative update for Robin. She's not feeling well. She went home early today. So, the first one is an abatement request for 23 Millbrook Drive. And the applicant for the abatement is Mr. Murphy. And did you wanna go through this at all, Mike?
Yeah, like if you can like really give us like a general review, Dave, if possible, just kind of how we got here, what's being requested, and then
Yeah.
I think we can jump out from there.
So I have what Mr. Murphy submitted, so there is an abatement he's putting in for. So he filled the pool with a handheld hose. He did not contact the sewer department before filling the pool, and he's looking for the abatement. So what has happened in the past is probably, Walter was here, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, when we went into a full water ban. The previous administration had where they handed out water meters at that point,
Oh, yeah.
and you could, if you had irrigation or you're gonna use a large amount of water, you could come down and ask for the water meter, and they could track the amount of water being used, but deduct that for the consumption used going over to sewer, and that would help
Right.
alleviate, and then they would subtract that from their bill. Since then, the water department's had, obviously, water bans moving forward, so, we've got rid of the program, 5 or 6 years ago with the water meters to kinda coincide with, with the water department. So, that's essentially where we're at. They still have a partial water ban going right now. I'm not sure where we'll be at this year, but that helps alleviate like overuse of water, if you're, irrigation, they've cut back on irrigation, cause I know the only, meters we look at right now are anything that's on a well. You know what I mean, because it's a little different because, using well water, so, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Dave. Like we do have Mr. Murphy. Do you want to come up and?
Do you want me to sit up there? Sure. Thank you all, and I just wanted to start by thanking you all for stepping up to the plate too, as lifelong Rockland resident, I know, we're constantly begging for people to step up, and given the situation that happened in this neck of the woods, very admirable of you all to take it on as.
A lifelong agreement for me.
Well, it's funny, I was sitting as many years as a park commissioner, and that was minimal compared to what you guys have to go through and what you have to know and all of the above. So kudos to you guys. So I just want to give a little bit of history. So as Dave pointed out, years ago, residents were able to take an abatement off any outside water use. And kind of what I've learned over the years, as I used to take that abatement, I realized that it stopped being honored. So I called it down here, and what I was told was, well, you can't take the abatement because there's a water ban. Okay, mud in my face, I guess you're right. So fast forward whatever number of years, that water ban is no longer in effect. There's a variation of the water ban, but the full water ban is not in effect. So what I'll say, and please, this has nothing to do with anyone in this room, you're all new to the role, but what happened was, when it was good for the sewer commission, they jumped on board. In other words, when there was a water ban, hey, let's jump on board, and the abatements are gone, and guess what? That's revenue for the sewer commission. I don't think there's any dispelling that. Now, when the water department is turned and said, well, there's not a full water ban anymore, the sewer department said, well, we're not going to abide by that. So when it was good for them, they jumped on board. When it wasn't good for them, they said, no, we're not going to go down that road. So to be perfectly honest with you, it was an absolute money grab, and remains a money grab. So my gut feeling, as someone that has paid and paid and paid, I don't know about the legality of it all. I'm sure it's legal what they did, but from an ethics standpoint, to kind of hop on board when it was good for you, but then not to give the residents back anything when it was back in their favor, I don't hold that very well. Me personally, I did a little math. I had probably over the past 5 years, just me personally in one home, we've overpaid. I'm saying overpaid. What I meant by that is when I take my average consumption in the winter and everything and compare it to the summer, in the last 5 years I've overpaid over $9,000 by not being able to take an abatement. So, me personally, I'm probably, I don't know, top 2, 3, 4% highest taxpayers on a single family home in the town. And now I'm getting hit with, not now, but I'm getting hit with this. I just don't think it's right. Again, no offense to anyone here, you guys are all brand new. And I'm not even sure if this was even in your mind. But what I'd like to do is, what can we do about this going forward to give a little relief to the taxpayers? I don't think there's really even a policy in place that addresses this, but yet I'm getting overcharged $2,000 or $3,000 a year because there's no policy. I just don't think it's fair.
Well, I mean, you could go back to the metering, but you would also, I'm not sure how that works with water.
Yeah, just my gut reaction to all this is, we're all trying to figure out this now, but I really think in terms of a policy that will be practical and applicable, really broaching a discussion with water to really see where where they are and all this as well. It's great. It's great, and we could probably say every day of the week that we're our own entity, and what one does doesn't impact the other, but in reality they do. So having broaching a discussion with water about really assessing where they're at in in a water ban, and how in all practical purposes we have an ability to reconcile where we're at now, and in the future in terms of a policy. I think it's really going to be extremely difficult to go back to time. That's just my hunch. But maybe by broaching a discussion with water, as we talked about at the last meeting, that it's my understanding that we don't actually have we don't as a department have a whole lot of policies. And like maybe, and again, we're trying to do a lot at once. Like we're in the process of trying to recruit, and then to hire for like a new superintendent as well. But definitely policies in the future that I'll provide like a guidepost and a framework about how we not only how as a board we do things and how we look to that framework for questions, but like I think way more important than that, giving and providing expectations and education to residents as well. So we're all operating and planning, toward the same, because it's all financial. That's just really my kind of out of the gate thought. Anyone else
So,
with thoughts or
I'm kind of in the
questions?
same boat, like, I don't know how to go backwards, you know what I mean, but I think we do the town a disservice. If we don't, going forward, we don't have some sort of system, especially going to this summer, that kind of addresses this, some form or fashion, you know what I mean? It could be as simple as when we apply for the meter here,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they have to go to the water committee first to make sure that it's okay for them to actually use the water. I don't know what the bans are, I don't wanna speak for the water department whatsoever.
Yeah, or like a
But
check the box.
If they checked off, said we're
Um,
okay with them filling their pool, why would we then not use that going forward for an abatement going forward?
And the way I look at that too is, so there's water that goes in the sewer system, there's water that doesn't go in the sewer system,
Right.
right? Just like the gentleman just talked about, right? So why am I and a taxpayer paying for something that's completely irrelevant to the sewer department? Right? It's like I should pay an extra sewer charge because I call the ambulance once a month, or I have 5 kids in the school system, or it has nothing to do with the sewer system. I know it's not that cut and dry because there is a little bit of a tie there.
Right,
But what I'm talking about is, me putting water in my 39,000 gallon pool, and then I'm getting charged on sewer rates on there is just ridiculous. And it used to be right, and then when the water bans came along, that's when it started to go off course.
Right.
And it was probably 5 commissions before you guys that decided that
10 superintendents.
Yeah.
Sorry.
that we're not going to give the taxpayer the benefit of something that we took away from them.
and that's why I agree, we have to have some sort of system in place, especially going forward for this year. You gotta figure that out, now we have to, again, how we have to figure that in. I don't wanna say it's okay to give an abatement to, for you to have the water in there, when it's actually illegal for you to use the water. That's why I'm saying.
Right, one thing has to tie to the other.
And that's where it does tie in, I think, here, that's the only place I would need them to say, it's okay for them to fill their pool.
Yep.
And move forward, I think we would have to develop something that allows that abatement, I agree. If you're not using a service, you should not be paying for a service you're not using.
Correct.
I would agree with that. But I said, I don't know how we would do that going backwards, I don't know how we monitor that.
You know what, and I'll take the blame for that because like I said, years ago I took an abatement. I actually paid, I think it was $1,000 to put my own meter in.
Yeah,
And I tracked every gallon that went to outside usage. And I forget what it was, we were doing something where we put new burners or whatever in the house, and they actually took the meter out. And from there I never really looked at it. And now, of course, in the day and age of like online banking, I looked at my sewer bill for the first time like 3 or 4 months ago going, whoa, because I never really looked at it. It was just the same amount going out every week, same thing I do with water, same thing I do with trash.
right.
And I look and I get a $3,000 balance on my sewer bill, and I'm like, that was the genesis of this, why we're sitting here
No,
today.
and understandably so, like I said, we have to figure out something going forward, absolutely. That's why I felt at this point, I agree we should not be charging anybody with a service they're not being rendered.
So to put it in perspective, my bill goes up 6-fold in the spring and summer over what I use in the fall and winter. It goes up 600%.
Did you bathe? Just kidding.
So I don't know where we take it from here. You guys can table it. You
I'm gonna have
can,
to think about this one.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to
You used
have
to
the
put
same
in
thing.
sprinkler systems all the time, right?
Right, we would install
What
water
about
meters.
as far as the meters?
We would install water meters in Rockland
What?
back in the, we used to install water meters back in the day.
For the outside usage.
Yeah, a
Yes.
couple of my customers had, Levine's was one
Mhm.
on Liberty Street, or off Liberty.
Yeah,
And they had her, when she started using the sprinkler system, turn it on, take a reading and then when she shut it off in the fall. I don't know how that percentage, how that worked as far as,
Well, it was hooked up
Usage.
directly to your outside usage.
Outside usage.
Yeah.
outside, yeah.
Yeah, so when I still have the meter, but I don't really use the irrigation that much anymore.
And to your point about the
Yeah.
meters, I mean, putting a policy in place, was there a policy when the meters were in use? Because that would be a starting point.
I agree, that's what we're trying to actually find,
Yeah.
we're actually trying to find if there are old policies that we can,
Yeah,
Okay.
start from, because we started off with this.
Yeah, no, and that's why I started my conversation giving you folks all the credit in the world, because you
Yeah.
get your hands full, there's no question about that, so. But I just wanted to give my 2 cents and,
Okay.
try to save my 2 cents, I guess, going forward. All good?
all right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank
you
you.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you guys will have to figure out moving forward how you wanna go about that. You make
Yeah.
up a valid point with the, coincides with the water department as well.
Yeah, I can't, right,
Yeah.
we can't say it's okay for you to break the law if they have a water ban on.
Right,
That might, I mean, so as long as they're signing off on it too, I go, again, I'm not gonna charge for anybody what they're doing, but if he's not supposed to be using the water, then there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, but the,
But that's immaterial, I mean, the taxpayer, if there's a water, if there's not a water ban, he should be able to use his water for whatever he wants and not get taxed sewage, so he absolutely should be able to do that. I mean, it's up to the water department if they're gonna allow it.
Do I mean, like, I mean, my thought, like, is I don't have any idea, like, if this rises, like, at this point, like, we need to have some coordination with the water department. Does, like, it make sense to, either have a discussion the next month, kind of offline, like, and see where the water department's at in this, and, based on that information, I'll begin kind of like assessing how we might be able to better do this based on that answer.
Yeah.
Or happy to even invite, the water commissioners or superintendent here to talk about it as well. Just again, so in what we're doing or contemplating, is like in line and is really collaborative with what they're trying to do as well. I mean,
I think that's a great idea, try to get something in place before the summer season hits.
like any chance you can touch base with like Crystal, like, and just gauge her thoughts.
I'll send her a email just so you have a copy of the correspondence
Okay.
and see what, where she's at with it.
Okay. I mean, like, I'm even thinking, like, even, to what we were talking about earlier, like, even if we have, like, an application form, so, like, anyone anticipating filling their pool, planting a lawn, if they apply with us, maybe our process is just, really, like, submit everything we have over to water, and unless and until we hear back from water with, like a checkbox checked, like maybe like there isn't anything we are able to do because, like we're trying to help abide by the same type of water ban. I don't, but those are my thoughts right now. But if they have any thoughts about how we can be better, kind of aligned. But also there is a point that if like water flow is not actually going back in the sewer system,
Well, we're charging for a service that we're not providing.
exactly.
At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to minimize.
Correct.
It's never gonna be a perfect system, but we should minimize it the best we can.
So, but we also don't want every person on every street who's planted a lawn, watered a lawn, done a water ban, throw the pool or coming before us and raising their hand and saying, I did this, like, I'm looking for your help here. I'm telling everyone that, there's a water ban as well, but There's a water ban.
No, and it's going to the back point when Mr. Murphy was here, we're talking about like, it's gonna be hard for us to go backwards. You know what I mean? Cause we can't have everybody saying,
yeah.
prolonging this, and there's no way to justify all that water usage at this point. It'd be difficult to do it at best.
Oh, yeah.
But I just wanna say going forward, you know, we try to put something in
Yeah.
place sooner than later.
Makes sense.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, like, and if it's okay with the board, like, we'll just really take no action on that at this point. I don't think we need to one way or another.
I would agree.
Okay.
Is that okay with
I
everyone?
agree, yes.
Alright, moving on. We have a drain layer renewal, it's for T King Excavation Corporation. They were already in our system from the year before, it's just a re-up. So if everyone's in agreement on that, I'll
Entertain a motion to
also sign those two.
approve the renewal
I'll
for
say,
King.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's a vote. Thank you.
And as far as miscellaneous, that will carry over to 52 Gardner Street. Robin was just gonna read off some documentation in regards to that, so if you wish, I can go into
Sure, that'd be great.
the superintendent update.
Thank you.
So I don't have a lot. I have some miscellaneous items at the wastewater treatment plant. Thank you, Walter. So we just had some miscellaneous tree work done, through the area that were identified by Veolia staff with maybe some, I don't know, some root infiltration, and then we have some areas where we know some future buildings are going on, so we had them take most of the, they were all pine trees or spruce, so they were all, you know, evergreens that had to come down there where we felt there were gonna be an issue in the long run with the plant upgrade, so we just paid the tree company the day rate for that, and we have another company coming out to do the stump grinding at a later date. We're reconfiguring the asphalt area behind the building. Veolia was kind enough to help us with all the scrap metal. We rounded up all the scrap metal, sent it over to the scrap yard, and had the receipts. It's going into the account. We're also, that area, we're getting some storage units for the Godwin pumps. We've got one storage unit that we're gonna put out back, and then we'll put some of the Godwins in, and towards the end of the fiscal year, as long as we're in decent shape, we'll grab another storage unit. We feel having the portable storage units as we're doing the plant upgrades in the future years and moving those around will also be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
that we have that already in place moving forward. One of the other items, I know I touched base on it last week, is we're shifting around the parking areas. So by Veolia helping us clean up the back areas, we'll shift some of the Veolia staff to the rear of the building, as we're gonna start needing the spaces for, you know, when you're having the OPM construction, there'll be a lot more visitor parking needed here. We're shifting the ADA parking over to the ADA ramp on the other side. And then we have a company coming out, they'll reline the area, cause the ADA compliance has shifted a little bit more over since the last time, you know, the upgrades were done here. I know, talking with Megan, I know some of the clarifiers and some other miscellaneous areas here have to be fixed and upgraded, so we're looking at getting a welder, put out a little procurement on getting a welder and kind of fabricating some of these items identified by Megan and her staff, and try to, you know, piece some of these metal objects that need to be refabricated, try to keep it together as much as we can before we get to the upgrades. Because obviously a lot of these parts are no longer in use, they're obsolete.
Yeah.
So we're gonna refabricate. So we have a couple welders we use over some of the other various departments, and they're coming in to look at it, and we're hoping that will work for us before we can get these upgrades done. The last is the generator project. It's complete. We're just working on going on a back and forth. Like I said, it was a little messy on, you know, where the generator was bought by us, and then, you know, Viola's kind of overseeing it. Wright Pierce is kind of overseeing it. You have an electrician, and then they sub out some of the piping work. So as far as the pay recs, we're trying to clean everything up over the next 2 weeks, and we'll come into our final, pay recs on that.
Yeah, again, just hopping on this, I mean, like, again, in the future, this is why we have an OPM, this is why we have our, town employees who manage projects, it's,
Yeah,
okay,
so, and I made mention of it before, a project of that scope, that's a $500,000 project.
Mhm.
You'll put the whole big scope out,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then you won't have that issue with the generator.
The splitting different parts out.
Right,
Yep.
you would have whoever's putting it, owns that generator at that point, and anything that goes on, along related to it, so we'll, we'll learn from that one, and then we'll move on. So out in the collections, we had a couple issues since the last meeting. I made, talking with Frank, so, there was an issue on Goddard Ave last week. The sewer line was backed up in front of the high school. This has been an ongoing issue, which I think lots of you have seen in the past. It happens once or twice a year. There was a small amount of backup in the basement of the Trinity Church. So they have some floor drains there that are actually tied into the sewer lines. I met with the church personnel on site. There was no smell of sewer when I went out that day. So that would probably be, there was the drainage, they're not using it for, washing down floors or anything. So you probably have a lot of infiltration on that drain lines
Mhm.
going out to the street. So when the sewer manholes backed up,
Yeah.
went up to the height, it probably pushed some of that water that was in those pipes out through the drains. It's probably between 5 and 8 gallons of water that came out. Again, there was no smell of sewer or anything. We ended up having for the emergency that day, we ended up calling Holding in for the jetting aspect of it, and we
Mhm.
ended up calling in Legacy for the vacuum aspect of it. Again, we try to not put it all on to Holdley, because then we have to dump at the plant, and then we're handling it
Mhm.
another time after that. So luckily, both contractors came out, very, expedient, and we were able to get this, resolved. That it happened to be on the same night as the Shamrock Classic, so, but I did reach out to the schools, and we have a good rapport.
Mhm.
And those lines are actually not even tied into the lines in front of the high school. These are the original old front lines.
Okay.
So, tracing back, we ended up bringing, when we ended up jetting now, we ended up bringing some, remnants of brick back into the manholes when we were jetting. So obviously that caused a little concern, so we ended up having it CCTV. So we brought the camera in the next day. We wanted just to evaluate it and look at everything we had there. What we did find is that we found that the pipe from the town hall is a 6-inch. It goes into a 90-degree manhole. Then that 90s, it goes over to a 8-inch pipe that goes towards the school to another 90-degree sewer manhole, changing direction. Then an 8-inch out to the street. And then there was another 90, now actually into a 180 into a 90 sewer manhole. And then that switches from 8-inch over to a 6-inch original segmented clay, which, and anybody that's in the field, the segmented clay has a ton of infiltration. It's an older, basing back, it can go back into the 30s, the 20s, even, so that 6 inches, 226 feet, and that runs down to where we were having the issues in front of the high school, and then that change of direction manhole goes out to Taunton Ave, and at that point, that switches back over to 8. So you see the issue, we went from 8 to 6, back to 8. So, and then after we cambered it as well, we found the invert heights going into the manholes were off about 1.5 inches, and some of the segmented clay was a cause of observation with the infiltration. So a lot of I&I, and also on the shelves in the sewer manholes. So looking at it as a project, we did reach out to Weston Sampson. They're gonna meter those areas so we can get a, rehabilitation. It's not a huge rehabilitation job, but there was a ton of infiltration in the manholes, in the clay pipe. So we'll move this project a little forward. It's 226 feet of, we would switch over to 8-inch plastic pipe, and then you would be replacing 3 manholes in there at that time, and obviously we would do that off-season from the school. So we're hoping we can, expedite the project in maybe either this summer or the following summer, depending on how things line up. but it would be a good project to get that I remediation.
Yep.
And a good project where we're not coming out, cause when you're looking at that each time, you know, you're looking at 5,000, you know, then you add some
Mhm.
camera work in there, and then, you know, each, you know, it's $5,000, and if you're doing it twice a year, and then this project, just looking at my scope, what I put together, you're looking at maybe a $25,000 to $30,000 project, and we could probably get close to that on remediation.
No, that makes sense.
So-
Like in the line, does it go through the parking lot or does it hug the grassy area
The one that's
over the
on-
Taunton Ave?
that is in the, that's in the parking, in the asphalt.
Okay.
So, but you have the one, like I said, that's coming from the town hall,
Yeah.
6 inch, which probably put in the 80s. I think that building was done in the 80s, the town hall. And then that switches over, going to the school, that was an upgrade, and then back out to the sewer manhole, so that must have been done when they did the upgrades, I'm assuming. Haven't got that far into the
Okay.
research on it, but
Oh.
we do know that 226 feet of segmented clay is in need of some
Mm-hmm.
love, cause it does.
Major repair.
Yeah, so, and it's an ongoing issue, I mean, how many times we've been out there, Megan, for, I mean, even in the last year, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I know when I was on previous line, the last time I was here, I was called out at least a couple times for that, and so, you know, you're looking at 4
Yeah,
or
no,
5
it's-
times in a
yeah.
few years, so. You know, we thought of maybe putting a grinder pump at the school, and then, but again, we'll be the ones getting called out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where it's a school, so if you're looking at overall,
Long term, it just.
long term, this would probably be the best, it's literally, we could put it out to one of the drain layers, put it out to bid.
Yep.
Keep it at the 30B procurement, you know, and then, you know, it's gonna be under the 50 of a capital expenditure project,
Yep.
so, yeah. I mean, we could shoot the inverts in-house and be all right with it.
Yep.
Alright, just wanted to let you know on that. One of the other collection projects was that MassDOT project, which I think we talked about
Mm-hmm.
on Center Ave. So the 12 manhole, so that has to go through MassDOT. On that, we began applying for the permits, it's a resubmittal, I did it 2 years ago, it wasn't followed up on, so now it goes through an online SHAPS, State Highway Access Permit program. So they need a little bit more data than they used to a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So again, where Weston Sampson has the I&I contract, we will have them come out, pre-assess those manholes
Mm-hmm.
as far as the replacement, because we could put those in because we're replacing all the structures themselves. That's just the metal structures up top, but they're all falling in, a lot of infiltration, so we'll have them go out, meter those during the spring. I mean, the SHAPS, submitted into the SHAPS program. We're probably looking to do that maybe by the end of the summer.
Good.
Again, we can run it under an I&I project as well.
Good.
But we think that would be a good one to get out of the way too, because it's been on the docket for a little bit now. And we do have the manholes. I think I ordered those last time I was here, so there's,
We have some of that.
yeah, those are MassDOT certified manholes, so they take about, I think they're 6 to 8 months to come in, so. We'll go back to the sewer line maintenance once the warmer weather gets here, so we started that in the fall and it got cold, so we'll start back up on the Reservoir, Hingham Street, Webster Street area, moving forward, late spring into, summer. So we got a call on a Upper Union Street project at 1119 Union Street, where they're planning on maybe doing a proposal for a project up there. So we do have a sewer.
storage yard.
What is it?
This is like the storage yard project? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Or
Right,
whatever it
just
is.
came in
Yep.
on ZBA.
Okay.
So we went out and I walked the sewer easement. So Walter will attest, there's a sewer easement that goes from Upper Union,
Mm-hmm.
cuts through. There's an easement, and eventually makes its way down into the Lavina, Loretta, Warren Ave area.
Yep.
So I did walk those. So I did as part of the Form K. I just put on that those will need to be during the project, after the project, and need to readily be accessible
Mm-hmm.
after the project, because I know they have
Yeah.
proposed fencing, and that would have to be in the fencing so we can access that, and that easement will still need to be shown on their
Mm-hmm.
final plan, so if Veolia staff or town staff needs to access those manholes
Yep.
moving forward, they're readily accessible,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yep.
Just wanted you to know about that. There was also a Beal Court extension, we had a resident, reach out to us on tying into the sewer on that, it's the last house that's not, so that is, if you go past
Beale Street Extension?
a court, so it's right before you get to Sawmill, Cornmill, before the
Oh.
old Rockland Auto Body.
Yeah, right past the
Oh,
cemetery.
Yeah, it's a dead end street.
Oh, yeah.
So 48 isn't tied in yet, so after we did some research, we found that 46, 48, and a couple of the other ones literally go through, there's an easement, and cuts through and goes over to Sawmill Lane. So we're gonna be popping some of those manholes as well, just to see what the inverts were and see where 46 is tied in.
Okay.
Megan's been kind enough to let me use a couple of the staff, we'll pop some manholes and see how that goes in. And see what the proposal is, he'll have to, I did tell the resident, as he gets closer, he'll have to come into the board, you know, for approvals on that, tie-in.
Okay.
So from what we know, the tie-in is from Sawmill at that point.
Okay.
That's essentially it, as far as, collections and wastewater treatment plants. We touched base a little bit on this 52 Gardner Ave, Gardner Street off of, you know, up on, as we get towards Hingham.
Yep.
So she did want, you know, this owner of 52, so just to put this straight, she did pay for the sewer stub, you know, onto her property. She currently right now has a septic system. She's claiming a hardship, she's in her 80s. Her husband's sick, so they've gotta do some upgrades to the house to get him in, and part of that, you know, she would like to connect to town sewer.
Okay.
She does pay taxes, and we did a little write-up, she does currently pay taxes to Rockland, a portion of her property is in the town. She did pay for the sewer stub, which I made mention to. Project is for 4 bedrooms, so it does not come up against the moratorium. Even though the tie-in and remediation fees are considerable, I did a remediation, cause we still have to charge for I&I remediation.
Correct.
Right, so I did work up the fees for that. She's agreeing to the fees in the
Okay.
schedule, cause they are considerable, but it's still less than taking out the old septic system and put it in a new septic system, for that process, so, you know, I think it's a decent project, the I&I fees for, and it's a single family is, $8,800, it's $8,800 just for the I&I fees, and then there's the sewer tie-in fees, so it comes out to $8,950, so obviously it's not, but it's a weird circumstance, and
You pay a lot more for a septic system.
Yeah.
you would pay a lot more to a septic system.
Probably 25.
Right, so it seems exorbitant, but it's where we're at right now with I&I. So,
No, agreed, and the thing is just being consistent with the I&I, no matter how big or small the project is, being consistent with that the entire time.
that's correct.
You know, it's gonna
It starts here,
give us a lot more credibility as far as what we're doing, because that's,
correct. And she did like I said, she did agree to the fees moving forward, so. And she would just act for a consideration. She is claiming a hardship as well. So like I said, she is in her 80s and she's, you know, she's looking for a little help.
I entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to accept the, I'm sorry,
$8,950 was it?
It's, the fees,
$8,950.
$8,950.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
For 52 Gardner Street, motion made in second, all those in favor?
Alright,
She should be very happy.
Isn't there a couple other houses on Gardner that?
You bring up, I mentioned that on the last one, I'm glad you brought that up, but there are, all the houses on Gardner, on the Hingham side right there, are tied into town sewer and are paying
Yeah.
a sewer
Oh,
bill.
so then,
yeah,
She was the last one to tie in,
that's good.
so, thanks for that. That's been a good point. Essentially, that's all I got, it's, the only update.
last month, we had a total flow of 66 million gallons. Average flow was 2.3. We had a total rain of 2.32 last month. This month is a whole different story. We had 3.44 inches of rain so far, and that's not calculating what is falling right now. Average flow as of right now this month is 2.730. So we ended up, it was 301,000 gallons of sludge that we were able to process out and ship out. 123 wet tons of sludge was hauled from the facility. We had pretty much not really any repair and maintenance. We had little stuff here and there, but nothing major. All the pumps are functioning so far. So everything's been good last month. This month's been a little quiet, so yeah.
Well, thank you for the, I don't want to say promising news, but like, I mean, like a few minutes ago when I heard the rain, like, on the roof, it just,
It's at 3.7 right now, flow, so.
with what?
Hmm?
7 more days left in the month.
Yep.
It's spring, so.
And it's spring. Okay. Alright. Well, thank you, Megan,
You're
as
welcome.
always. I feel like, and one thing I just want to mention that, like, and really, I like I was just mentioned earlier, like, I was here on Friday, we're going through, like, the 4 proposals, and what I think is, like, really, like, I think we've actually turned an extremely new, healthy leaf. Going through the OPM and going through the OPM proposals, and I really have to believe it's elsewhere in a whole bunch of other projects. The collaboration that we're having with the town, we have the assistant town administrator here, we have the town planner here, we're just like, this is the only way to do it. And, I really am hopeful, we're addressing issues that are right in front of us, but, doing it, in a very, very, very collaborative way, where we're working with each other, where we're gonna, really this OPM, this OPM review process has actually given rise, originated, another idea as well, that that the same group, that we have for that process with the chair of our board, whoever that is, we really have a regular, a type of internal meeting, whether a meeting, touch and base, but just a process really, it's early on, but just a process where, we ensure that we're on the same page and we're, we're rowing in the same direction, and I think, I think it's healthy. Not only is it the best practice, we're all trying to, and we all are serving the same exact residents. And so goes, our department, so goes our town as well. And really, when there's issues, and there have been issues, when EPA reaches out, when, let's hope it, it never happens, but, when the Department of Revenue reaches out, because God forbid there's an issue with retained revenues that we're planning for, to have a healthy retained revenue now, they reach out to the town as a whole as well. We're part of the town, we operate here, but we operate within this part of the town, and I was just it really struck me leaving on Friday that what we're doing together with the town, as a group and a team here, is already 5 or 6 months in, is already having a real impact. So I just want to mention that there's there's a whole environment out there right now, but I just want to really, as yeah, like as much as we can, really make sure people, residents are seeing and hearing what is happening and happening through working together, so.
Thank you.
No, I'm just to touch base on what you brought up Friday, that, I mean, I came out of that with that working group, I mean, Megan was there, you
Yeah.
were there, I was there, and I thought you had a lot of different aspects. I mean, Megan's obviously bringing everything, the plant in, so, just going around the room and the questions, and, everybody had different ideas, and I think it gelled very good, and I think we're in a good spot, I mean, you had some good applicants, and you're rounding them down, and I think we're in a good spot with
But
that.
to touch up on what you said, it's different, like one person representing different departments, and we're all coming together. I get it's really nice, but really went well.
Yeah. It was productive.
So,
Very good.
You wanna set up?
Next meeting?
Meeting?
yes, so, we talked about, like, we're trying, and also to just, just like as Weston and Sampson brought up as well, rates,
Mhm.
especially FY26 rates, really, I know at our last meeting, there was a question where we would land on rates going, into FY26, like, I'm thinking that, if we set up like an early April meeting, that we would be able to deal with the OPM, just really like an update in the rundown, of the proposals there, so we can go ahead and do, and set up the interviews, and plus really, hopefully really landing, where we're gonna be on the FY26 rate structure. So, that brings us to next week, I can't believe it's April already. So, next, there's always next Monday, I'll just throw it out there.
You're still in March at that,
Yeah,
yeah?
That doesn't matter to me, and, I'm fine with that. I'm pretty much open for the next couple weeks.
there's, I mean,
What
like in
time?
terms of, there's like 6 o'clock, like is 6 o'clock okay going forward? It just provided, like I wasn't like running in here on 2 wheels, and like knocking on the door like a banshee.
You're finally at 5:15.
I know, I mean, like I finally found a sweet spot that I don't wanna mess it up.
No, 6 o'clock's fine.
Okay,
I have no problem with that.
Is that good for you,
I'm
Mike?
okay.
is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, is this gonna just be OPM related?
OPM and rates.
You wanna do the rates that night as well?
I mean, like, is it actually too quick to do rates?
No,
Okay,
we need it as soon as we can,
That's
okay,
fine.
because we have to start prepping for that.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think the sooner the later, and if we can incorporate it by a day into March, then
Okay.
is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Working for
And
Monday
I'll
it is.
have the documentation in regards to the rates for you
Perfect.
guys before that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. So we'll meet next on Monday, March 31st at 6 p.m.
Did you guys wanna do the second date? Did you wanna stick with
Oh.
the last week in April?
So I don't have a problem with that. The only question just pulling up a calendar. The only question I have is if we were keeping. Yes, yeah, because if
Are we thinking about the 21st, or we think, no, or was that Friday? We're talking about school vacation week?
yeah, no, that was for like into
That was to me.
as potentially
Right.
That
yeah,
was
Our
to me.
internal.
last meeting for us,
Yeah, but
for
So
the-
go
for the
through
working
with the
board.
questions and stuff.
yeah,
So do we want to
I think I'd like the 28th.
do 28th?
Cause that'll be after that meeting. It'll be after your working meeting,
Yeah.
so it'll be a
Yes.
good thing.
Yes.
So we'll do the 31st of March. So we'll have to put that right out. So the agenda for that, just to make clear, will just be OPM discussion and rate discussion
For the 4th. Or
for the 31st, March
My 31st,
31st.
that's not
Okay.
Next Monday. Don't mind my math, I went to Rockland.
Okay. Alright,
Hearing And seeing no other business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
One second.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the time is now 7:40.